The most extreme desert conditions in the Pacific region are encountered in the low-lying Mojave and Sonoran deserts of California. In its natural state, this barren territory doesn't look like it could ever be used for farming. But with enough water, the land is magically transformed into green, productive fields like these. The Imperial Valley of California was as arid as the state's other desert areas before water was brought in from the nearby Colorado River. Today, all kinds of crops thrive here, thanks to the availability of abundant water for irrigation. In the early 20th century, Colorado River water that was being diverted for irrigation broke loose and flowed freely into the desert. For nearly 2 years, water collected in a low-lying basin, creating a huge lake called the Salton Sea, which today is a major geographical feature of southeastern California.
The West abounds with natural resources. Using and enjoying natural resources requires protecting them. One way the United States protects land and resources is by creating national parks. You can't explore the West geology without a look at the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Formed over millions of years by the fast-moving waters of the Colorado River, the Grand Canyon is a giant gash in the Earth's crust. Over the centuries, water, wind, and melting snow eroded the walls of the canyon, exposing the layers of rock. These colored layers serve as an illustrated timeline that geologists study to understand the canyon's history. It has taken millions of years for the canyon to appear the way it does today.
In 1846, Brigham Young led a group of Mormon people west and past the Rockies. The Mormons were a group of pioneers who were in search of religious freedom. In July of 1847, the Mormons reached the Great Salt Lake Valley in what is now Utah. Young chose to settle this land because he thought no other settlers would want it. The land was hot and dry, and the lake was saltier than the ocean. But the Mormons built irrigation canals. Those canals brought water from the mountains to irrigate their farms. They made that desert land grow crops of grain, fruits, and vegetables. This settlement would come to be called Salt Lake City.
I've been there.
Nearly 4 million longhorn steer roamed the Texas plains in 1860. As demand for beef grew in faraway cities such as Chicago, St. Louis, and Philadelphia, the challenge was created to move large herds toward the cities. In 1867, Joseph G. McCoy built a cattle trading station in Kansas near the railroad. McCoy recruited cowboys to drive herds, and within 5 months, 25,000 longhorn had arrived. Several other cattle trails snaked their way to Kansas in a remarkably short time. Farmland along these trails was often trampled by the steer, and the homesteaders reacted bitterly to the haphazard destruction of their cultivated lands. As railways began to crisscross the country in the 1880s, the demand fell for cowboys to relocate Texas herds. By the 1890s, the peak of the cowboy era had come to an end.
The Wright brothers traveled to Kitty Hawk in September 1903. Bad weather and engine problems caused delays. Finally, on December 17th, they were ready to test the plane. They had laid a wooden track in the sand for the plane to run on during takeoff. With Orville at the controls and Wilbur running alongside to steady it, the plane rolled down the track. Orville had set up a big box camera and asked a bystander to snap the shutter if the plane took off. The result was this famous picture. The plane rose in the air, flew for 12 seconds at about 30 miles per hour, and came down after going 120 feet. They tried again, and on the fourth attempt, Wilbur flew the longest flight of the day, 852 feet in 59 seconds.